Here we are. The end of 2020 is finally upon us. The games industry has had some monumental events take place, for better or worse. With an incredible number of new games dropping, each with some bright new faces to take us along on the journey. We are here to talk about the best character of 2020. The ones that not only personified their respective games, but also had that little extra something to stay in our minds once we put the controller down. These are the characters who played a major part in pulling us into their world and made us wonder why they don't have more of the spotlight themselves. Here are the top 10 nominees for Best Character as voted by your friends at COGconnected. Zomz the Far Out may, at first glance, appear to be something of a typical platforming vendor. He is short, loud, and greedy. This isn't exactly a new trait in lovable, child-friendly games, but it doesn't take much to take a closer look at the odd little fellow and see his significance. Zomz is energetic and charming. His peculiar attire and accent combination is bursting with personality in stark contrast to Sackboy's rather muted simpleness. Zomz's weirdness balances out against Sackboy's more blank slate design, and despite being loud and in your face, he is just as charming the 100th time as he was the first. In a game set in the underworld of Greek mythology, you probably wouldn't expect a living training dummy to be such an integral role. Skelly, as his name might suggest, is a skeleton for which you can test out your skills and combos before heading into your next mission. For a game with so much praise in its art design, gameplay, and voice acting, you wouldn't expect the almost Brooklyn-esque accent of your undead pincushion. Skelly himself is as charming as a street grifter, and is just out of place enough in the world of Hades to make him extraordinarily memorable without alienating the player. He also serves as some small medium of comic relief against the rather serious tone of the Greek cast. The beloved Half-Life series took its big step into the world of VR with Half-Life Alyx, letting players take on the titular role and dive into a world full of headcrabs and horror. Half-Life has always managed to straddle the mature and often scary tone with some well-placed humor, but the guiding star of Half-Life Alyx was definitely found in Russell. Russell is the lovable oaf who gives Alyx the gravity gloves and her starting pistol. He is always ready with a wisecrack, although sometimes struggles to find a filter, and is otherwise a beacon of positivity to support Alyx while she faces off against some truly horrible enemies. Another entry from the highly acclaimed roguelike Hades, Majira is quite different from the other nominees in the complexity she brings to the game's narrative. One of the Furies tasked with guarding over the underworld, Majira and Zagreus had previously been in a romantic relationship prior to the beginning of the game. True, we've seen scorned lovers as enemies before. However, should you approach Majira properly, it is indeed possible to fix things and, in fact, rekindle your relationship. Hades is a complex Greek tale, but Majira's narrative and her relationship to Zagreus takes it one step further. She isn't just a love interest or a powerful foe, but is a compelling and interesting part of our protagonist's history. When we talk about the legacy that is Final Fantasy VII, rarely does the name Don Corneo come up as a defining part of the series. Having a small yet important role in the original game, Corneo's presence was greatly expanded in Final Fantasy VII Remake, who saw him appear as one of a few core antagonists in the game. With his insatiable appetite for a bride, his underground fighting tournaments, and that impressive yet unsettling mustache, Don Corneo definitely stands out as an impressive figure in 2020 gaming. Corneo is a villain you love to hate. He's a sleazy crime boss who rules the slums with an iron fist, kidnapping women and selling out the people of Midgar to the higher-ups. Despite his flamboyant appearance, Corneo is one of the more grounded villains of the series, in that he is just a regular fool corrupted by power. He made for an interesting departure from the otherwise doom and gloom of the series, and for that, he stands out as one of the best characters of the year. Yakuza has always been an interesting franchise full of colorful activities and absolutely bananas combat. So when Like a Dragon appeared and we not only were given an entirely new combat system, but a new hero as well, it drew a lot of questions as to whether or not this was too much too fast for the long-running franchise. Enter Ichiban Kasuga, the rock-bottom dragon. Within the first few moments of the game, you'll see that Ichiban is an excitable, impulsive, and energetic character, a vast departure from the previously stoic series lead, Kazuma Kiryu. From the way he fights, talks, and dresses, it's hard to not immediately take a liking to him. His personality is on the same level of the wild antics of the franchise, and he makes it that much easier to get immersed in the game. The man himself. Cyberpunk legend Johnny Silverhand had to be just right, and no one could have pulled off the character just right like Keanu Reeves. Johnny is a legend in Night City, starting out in the band Samurai and eventually becoming a labeled terrorist for fighting against the Arasaka Corporation. Johnny is implanted in your brain, appearing as blips in your vision, leaning against a wall, smoking a cigarette, or just there to mock you. You'll have full conversations with Johnny as he weighs in on the things you see and do, often playing shoulder devil to whatever choice lays before you. The relationship between Johnny and V is incredibly complex and one that becomes the driving force for the game. Johnny is dark, intelligent, and articulate. He helps balance out the rather one-note V, and together they make a truly memorable experience. Also, it's Keanu. Okay, probably not what you expected than top 3, but Animal Crossing has a colorful cast of adorable, lovable characters to bring to your island. And then there's Gulliver. One of the characters who appears regularly but cannot be recruited, Gulliver is a sailor who regularly washes up on your shore and requires you to gather his broken communicator parts so he can call for a ride. Always ready with a sailing pun, Gulliver feels like one of the few visitors who is a constant and who you don't mind helping out. His quest takes a few minutes at most, and his sassy dialogue is usually quite enjoyable. It's a treat to find Gulliver passed out on your beach, and especially handy to know he isn't going anywhere until you are ready to wake him up. Unlike the other visitors who wander about and go missing. Animal Crossing is already so full of charm as it is, but Gulliver brings a frantic, confused, and adorable level of sass that makes it worth seeing every time. Jessie Raspberry is what happens when you take a minor character equivalent to a paragraph and turn it into a full novel. Having only limited dialogue in the original game, Final Fantasy VII Remake saw Jessie shine as an adorable and overly enthusiastic member of Avalanche, who was not afraid to put the moves on Cloud every step of the way. In the game, we get to learn her backstory. We visit her childhood home as Biggs and Wedge have late-night pizza with their mother. She not only is an incredibly developed character, but embodies the good in humanity and the common people of the slums below Midgar. Debates have long been argued over whether or not Cloud belongs with Aerith or Tifa in a romantic relationship, and Jessie has appeared as a new contender for the crown as Cloud's love interest. While we might never see them together, Jessie, who is intended to be a minor character, has easily stolen our hearts with her good nature, enthusiasm, and forward demeanor. Ghost of Tsushima is legendary in its own right. The narrative, controls, art direction, everything is picture perfect. Even with all of that at hand, a game can only be as good as its cast of characters, and none are more peculiar and fascinating than the odd Kinji. A farmer who sells goods and frequently finds himself in trouble, Kinji is much the eccentric weirdo to Jin's straight-faced honor-bound hero. Ghost of Tsushima is a somber, soulful, and cinematic experience that elevates gaming, but to balance out this tone is Kinji's antics. He frequently finds himself in trouble for making bad deals with the wrong people. A trickster at heart, Kinji will convince others to enter into a deal with him regardless of its safety or security. Despite these wild and dangerous situations he finds himself and others in, he is brimming with good intentions. Kinji is a refreshing soul in a well of broken, serious characters. He adds levity while being respectful to the world and source material. He gives us a grounding point to see a new personality and what the common people are like. Not everyone can be Jin, but there is something familiar in a person like Kinji. He complements the game as a necessary piece of the mural which makes Ghost of Tsushima so fantastic. The eccentric weirdo to Jin's straight-faced. Do you agree with our list? Who do you think should have won Best Character of 2020? Let us know in the comments section below, and make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as it really helps us create the very best content for you.